So this video was originally just going to be about Kitty Softpaws because one of you lovely folks popped into my ask box on Tumblr to ask if she counts as a disabled character, which flipped some kind of switch in my brain because I have not thought about Puss in Boots once in the 12 years since it came out, but I am so deeply passionate about how you should never declaw your cat. What the actual hell is wrong with you? Suffice it to say, this ask activated some kind of sleeper agent in me who is made up entirely of love for this one specific animated feline. But then I actually watched The Last Wish, and dear God, I may be late to the party, but I am so on board. So, before we actually get to the main subject of this video, allow me to gush about The Last Wish just a little. Because, dear God, this movie is good. Spoilers, obviously. I can't talk about The Last Wish without at least mentioning the art. This movie is a treat visually. While it remains loyal to the general art style of previous Shrek media, it's not afraid to get a lot more creative and fun with the effects, the colors, the lighting. In general, I think we've been seeing a rise in 3D animated movies that aren't afraid to stylize themselves recently, and I am so on board for it. I was kind of expecting this movie to be good going in because some of my friends, who I trust to have good taste, like it. But I was not expecting the emotional throat punch. This movie has so many powerful moments, not just between our main characters, but with the supporting cast as well. I can confidently say that I've never been so moved by a rendition of Goldilocks and the Three Bears before. But, honestly, Puss stole the show. Don't get me wrong, Perrito is a sweetheart and I love him, but Puss's emotional through line in this movie is magnificent. It's such a good and sympathetic look at anxiety and PTSD and grappling with the truth of one's own mortality. I especially love how they handled the wolf, this apparent bounty hunter, who appears with the goal of claiming Puss's last life, and who actually manages to disarm and nick him when no blade has touched him before. Because after his first appearance, all the way up until the Cave of Lost Souls, we're never sure if the wolf is actually there. The doubt is placed the very next time the wolf is referenced when Puss gets triggered by the sound of one of the bears sniffing about. Because of that, when we next see the wolf, we can't be sure if he's actually there or if Puss is having some kind of very intense flashback. All the way up until the Cave of Lost Souls, and the best goddamn reveal I've seen in a long time. Your death. Seriously, I love him. Anyway, he's here because Puss is on the last of his 9 lives, and he's swanned his way through life, laughing in the face of death. He's never treasured what he has, he's irreverent, he fancies himself immortal. So Death figured he'd just come and collect the last life early. And I love how the solution isn't to defeat him. Death isn't something you conquer or vanquish. Puss solves this by standing in the face of his fear and fighting even though he knows he can't win. He comes out of this adventure with the knowledge and the acceptance that he is going to die. Someday, but not today. The solution is to respect death, to come to terms with him. They will see each other again, and Puss has made his peace with that. That is what makes Death back off and allow him to continue to live out his lost life in peace. For a movie where one of the antagonists is literal death, it's shockingly death positive, and I love that. I love that especially for a children's movie because we so rarely talk about death with our kids. Not in any real way, anyway. This is a really positive, healthy attitude to have. Not to live in fear of death, but to accept it as part of life. But I've given enough time to my love for this movie in particular, time to talk about the actual subject of this video. To answer the question that started all of this, yes, Kitty Softpaws is absolutely a disabled character. Even if that hadn't been as plainly showcased as it was in the original movie, I would still say so because she's been fucking declawed. And this is where we take a break from media analysis so I can scream about how declawing your cat is animal abuse and should be illegal everywhere. The process of declawing a cat doesn't just remove the claws, and even if it did, I would still call that cruel. Your cat's claws aren't just there to hurt, they're used in things like scratching to mark territory, kneading, providing traction while running, climbing, stretching, digging, and even play a role in a cat's balance. To say nothing of self-defense, your cat's claws play a vital role in most of what they do. Declawing removes everything up to the first knuckle of your cat's paws, because if it didn't, the claws would continue to grow. It fundamentally changes the shape of your cat's paws, which can result in other issues, as they have to change how they walk, and it makes it uncomfortable, even painful for them to do so, because they're missing the first bit of all of their paws. Declawing can cause paw pain, back pain, infection, tissue necrosis, and lameness. Some cats will become biters after declawing because, again, you've removed a fundamental part of their anatomy that they use in part for communication. Even worse, if all claw tissue is not completely removed, the claw will keep trying to grow, which can cause actual nerve damage or an abscess. On the flip side, if too much is removed, that's also really bad, and only increases the chance of lameness. Because, unsurprisingly, if the second bone is damaged, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way to justify putting your cat through all of this, even if the surgery goes perfectly to standard. Because, again, claws are pretty vital to a cat's everyday life. So yes, Kitty is disabled. Let's talk about how that's actually handled, shall we? We first meet her in the first movie when she and Puss are independently trying to go for the same score. The magic beans that the murderous outlaws Jack and Jill recently got a hold of. Puss and Kitty get into a fight about which one of them should be allowed to steal the beans, which leads to neither of them stealing the beans, and a chase scene across the rooftops through the city, leading to a cat club called the Glitter Box. Except the neon is out on the G. Get it? They have a dance battle that I'm convinced confirms Puss is bi, because there's definitely some vibes even before he finds out she's a woman. At which point he hikes it up to 11, because of course he does. At this point, we don't yet know that Kitty's disabled, and neither does Puss. It's revealed she's working for Humpty Dumpty, Puss's childhood friend and sort of brother. Puss refuses to work with them, she chases him down, he dumps his entire tragic backstory on her while she tries and fails to pretend she's paying attention. Classic beginning of a rogue-for-rogue love story, really. It's when we get to the team-up heist for the beans that the other shoe drops. While Kitty and Puss are hanging from the roof of Jack and Jill's wagon, Kitty attempts to pick the lock on the bean box with her sword. It's a tense situation and she's having some trouble, so Puss asks her why she's not using her claws. At first she tries to deflect, but then he snaps at her and the truth comes out.
Use your claw!
Be quiet!
Your claw!
I don't have any claws, alright?
Puss is confused about this, and once things have calmed down and the two of them are back in the wagon, he tries to simultaneously talk around it and ask what happened. It's extremely awkward and not tactful in the least, and Kitty's immediately on the defensive. Her first move is to shore up her walls and prove herself. She's the best thief who's ever lived, he shouldn't underestimate her. And here I will give Puss some credit. Despite the fact that he's obviously burningly curious, he takes her hint and backs off, which is the right move because it gives her enough confidence in him to tell him that the people who took her in as a kitten had her declawed. And she doesn't know why. This is, arguably, even more fucked up than a regular declawing. Because Kitty is not just a cat, she is a talking fairy tale animal. She can communicate with humans and is at a reasoning level with them. In this very movie, it's illustrated how Puss, a talking cat who was raised by a human, views that human as his mother, and she him as her son. Kitty's parents did this to her, instead of just buckling down and, I don't know, parenting? But no, she's a cat, not a human, so the easier solution is to mutilate their child. Just get her a scratching post and explain to her why she can't play with the hamster, good God. Shortly after this reveal, Puss has a brief moment where he jumps in to try and defend Kitty when she doesn't need it. I can't tell if it's just classic sexist machismo or well-meaning ableism, but either way she shuts that down right quick. And again, he doesn't repeat this behavior. That's 2 for 2 on Mr. Boots listening to his love interest and taking her seriously. Love that for them. Also, side note, I love their play fighting. That has nothing to do with the rest of the video, but it's actually so goddamn cute. The next time Kitty's disability becomes relevant is while they're all fleeing with the golden gosling, and Kitty falls off a beanstalk into the river. Because she doesn't have claws, she can't get a grip to leverage herself up again, and this time when Puss jumps in to help her, it is actually needed. After that point in the movie, her disability isn't really touched on again, but it doesn't need to be. She betrays Puss, regrets her actions, turns around and helps him instead. And in The Last Wish, her disability is pretty much irrelevant. The only time it comes up is in association with her trauma and her understandable trust issues. Even then, it's in among a list of other shit that's happened to her to make her prickly about the idea of trusting anyone. Between the last movie and this one, for example, she and Puss had a relationship that got serious enough for them to almost get married, but he got cold feet and she didn't show either because,
well, I knew I could never compete with your one true love.
Who?
Yourself, the legend. I wasn't gonna show up for that guy.
while I love their playful rivalry turned lovers from the first movie, the progression of their relationship in this movie is actually so sweet. Because Puss becomes a more genuine, less self-centered person, and that's what allows Kitty to imagine that maybe she could give them another go. Also, there's a scene where Kitty shaves Puss's depression beard, and the intimacy of allowing someone to hold a knife so close to your throat and to trust them not to harm you. Immaculate. Now, Kitty's presence in a movie where the end goal, that all our characters are fighting for, is a wishing star, I will confess, made me incredibly nervous at first. I spent a good chunk of this movie being absolutely terrified that her wish would be for her claws back. Because that's what I've come to expect from disabled characters in media. That even if some other want would make much more sense for their character, their writers will assume that obviously being able-bodied must be their greatest wish. Not so for Kitty Softpaws. Her writers do her the courtesy of understanding her. All she wants is someone, just one person, who she can actually trust. By the end of the movie, she has two. Kitty Softpaws is honestly a fantastic disabled character. She's invisibly disabled, which isn't all that common in media, so I always appreciate it when I see it. Her disability is not shied away from, but neither is it her only character trait. She is multidimensional. She's a thief and a liar who first approaches Puss with the intention of betraying him, but she's also caring, clever, and willing to change. She knows her own worth and won't play second fiddle to anyone, not even the man she loves. There's a small hint of disability superpower to her character, but I honestly think that it's just realistic cause and effect in this case. Her lack of claws forced her to adapt, so she poured all of her energy into developing the softest touch possible, to the point where she can steal the beans out of a man's hand without him noticing. And finally, while it's never mentioned in either of the movies she's in, I am absolutely convinced that she has chronic pain. You will have to wrestle that headcanon from my cold, dead hands. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, consider liking it and maybe subscribing. I will be back here Thursday after next. Bye.